Welcome to The Difference Engine, the show for tech founders, investors, and innovators.
Hey, Jono, what have we got coming up today?
We're going to highlight the Europeans leading the AI charge.
And we'll sift through the debris of the so-called Saaspocalypse.
But first, let's wrestle with OpenClaw, the latest piece of red-hot AI property. But we have to ask the question, are we going to get burnt? So let's kick off this week with the rather thorny, or should we say snappy, in fact, question of OpenClaw. Now, OpenClaw, is it a fashion? Is it just a fad? Or now just a feature? Or frankly, something bigger than that? So it is a phenomenon, and like many we've seen, we've been around a long time, so that includes the internet, the growth of the iPhone, even ChatGPT in the last year. Is this thing around OpenClaw 4 seasons in one day? Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's more like 3 names in one fortnight. What on earth is going on? And why are people speculating it's just been snapped up by Sam Altman? And also, apparently, a big run on the West Coast on little mini-Macs to run it. So perhaps you could enlighten me and presumably the listeners with just tell us, Paul, what is OpenClaw?
Yeah, so OpenClaw is some software that allows you to take tasks that you've been doing, sometimes very disjointed tasks in a business, and give it the keys to all the software for the various bits of the process you need and have it just go do that 24/7 without a break. When you're asleep, when you're awake, and just grind away at the issues. And people are reporting that it's been absolutely amazing for automating entire processes of work. Depending on how much of the hype you buy, this thing is the actual instantation of what is going to get rid of people. Let's start with the naming farce. Originally called OpenClaw, the people at Anthropic didn't like that for obvious reasons. Then we had Claudebook, then we had Maltbook, now we have OpenClaw, which everybody's happy with.
Nobody's been crabby about that then.
No one's being crabby, although interesting enough, the reason it was called Maltbook for just a couple of days, literally, was lobsters, obviously, malt. Let's look at the hype here. There's this hype good and there's hype bad. You get a lot of very excited, I would say, semi-programmers talking about just how amazing this has been for them, how it's changed their life, revolutionized everything they do, and they're going to be rich before bedtime, all of that stuff. Until now, ChatGPT was the fastest growing tech, and this thing's come along and completely trounced it. Someone else is saying that there's 2 million weekly visitors to the OpenClaw website. 2 million weekly visitors makes it one of the most heavily trafficked open source AI projects. So if you haven't, you probably should start looking at this. However, we've got some friends who's looked at it in a bit more detail.
Oh, the great Jason Lemkin, perhaps. Always worth the read.
Yeah, Jason Lemkin of SaaStr. We like him. We love his event. He wrote a long-form write-up because he's been on this from the start. Actually, not so much just OpenClaw, but also vibe coding. I believe he uses Replit.
Yeah, when they every new tech comes on, they seem to use it at SaaStr just to try it out. It's really quite amazing that they do that.
I mean, yeah, he's a former entrepreneur. You can understand that. I think it was I forget which company he sold to, Adobe. One of those contract reading things. But he's running currently over 20 agents to replace his go-to-market team at SaaStr, which is sad for them, I suppose.
I bet his sales team are a bit concerned about this, aren't they?
Well, it's no longer their concern. He did have a 10-person sales team. He now has 20-plus agents doing their jobs. And in his podcast, he says, we replaced our sales team with 20 AI agents. And then he goes on to talk about what happens. And he repeats, the current model is 1.2 humans, or full-time equivalents, I guess, and 20 AI agents replacing 10 humans.
Right, it's all a bit spicy. I mean, perhaps we should just break down what are the concerns about this. I mean, this is very, very paradigmatic.
This is very early stage, right? So I spoke to an expert from one of the cybersecurity firms. His line was very simple. Use OpenClaw when Apple has a version of it, and not before. And this guy's very, very experienced at cyber. So there's your warning number one. The first thing you got to figure out if you want to do something with OpenClaw is, do you want it run it yourself? or do you want to get one of these hosting services?
What AI delivered as software as a service?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's interesting, given the current arguments.
Well, yeah, what are you handing over there? Because you have to give it the keys to the kingdom. You have to give it the keys to your software for it to do anything agentic. And of course, all of these hosting companies are brand new. If the tech's brand new, the guys that are hosting it are also brand new, so very unproven. And then people, there's been a run, as you said, on Minimax. Some people are going the whole hog and getting the really top of the range Apple workstations to do this. Are very serious. But certainly it's caused a little blip in the hardware sales. I also hear from other people, all you need is an knackered old laptop. It's good enough. You don't need to go for the
definitely got one of those.
There you go. And the other thing you need to know, because part of the advantage of this thing is, it doesn't go to the loo, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't get sick. Have you got somewhere, if you host it yourself, where you can run reliably some hardware 24/7? I don't think a lot of us have, even though we might think we have, and you may run into a couple of issues with paying the bill.
So another concern might be the environmental impact on this. I mean,
Yeah,
clearly everybody's
absolutely.
worried about the environmental impact of AI data centers.
You've got your own one in your house.
All these little knackered old machines, running away 24/7, probably heating people's houses. Then I think that's something to be concerned about. But it strikes me the number one concern on this is security. What do we think about that at the moment?
Yeah, so there's a big paper that caused a lot. I mean, this thing's moving so fast. There was a paper called The Agents of Chaos.
Oh, that's Natalie Shapira? Is it the MIT guys?
Yes, there's a bunch of them, actually. That thing had 6,000 reads in 48 hours. Now, I know you've written a few academic treatises yourself, but
indeed I have.
6,000 reads, that's like, what is that, 400 an hour? No, 40 an hour?
Oh, I would have been very, very happy if people had read at that speed for cable television in the UK, issues in the formulation of the technology policy. You can still get it on the internet too.
Number one, it sounds riveting.
In 1981, it was.
All right, so the Agents of Chaos paper came out ages ago now, February 24th, ages ago. But it's caused quite a stir. And, some of the things here are really quite scary. I'll just read a little bit here. Observed behaviors include unauthorized compliance with non-owners, disclosure of sensitive information, execution of destructive system-level actions, denial of service conditions, uncontrolled resource consumption, per your point, identity spoofing vulnerabilities, cross-agent propagation of unsafe practices, and partial system takeover.
Oh, nothing to worry about then.
Other than that, we're all good.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Go for it, people. Then there's the small issue of cost.
Right.
Because these things are burning tokens.
Yeah. Let's not pretend they're free compared to employees.
No. And this is where it's interesting, because a lot of people say AI will replace folks, right?
Right. But your agents are going to cost you money.
They also cost you money. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
It may not be sick pay. It may not be bonuses, but it's certainly
national insurance.
No, not even Rachel Reeves touches these guys, but they do cost money.
Oh, she'll find a way.
She'll find a way. We've got Jason here saying that with our agents, we hit $300 a day per agent. Now, bear in mind, he's got 20 agents, right? That's a lot.
That's a sort of $100K a year per agent, isn't it?
Yeah, you could get a decent person for $100K a year, even in the States.
You could get a very decent person. You could probably get, well, at least two, maybe.
Yeah. The guys from the All-In Pod, they're actually thinking about this, as they would do, a little bit more strategically, and talking about token budgets.
Right, for the best developers, presumably. Oh, look, we've got some token budgets here. Ooh, how good are you as a developer? Ooh, you can have more of this budget.
Well, you can, or you can have less if it doesn't work out. The point is you are managing an AI agent workforce as if you're managing a workforce. We all know that's quite difficult. They reckon that for an AI agent to be worth it, they need to be twice as productive as other employees. Now, in some cases they will be, but if they're not, it ain't worth it. And then I'm looking at this. I saw something on LinkedIn, a chap called Richard Lai. He's a senior full stack engineer, so you'd think he'd know what he's talking about. And he's asking the question quite validly: OpenClaw users, what's your monthly API cost looking like?
Yeah, I'm also just wondering. Inflation in the cost of tokens could easily outpace the salary of employees. It's a sort of reverse union effect.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we've got not enough history to know what prices at which tokens are going to go up. Although we do know most of the LLMs are not making money, right?
I think we do know the basis of capitalism, which is once you've got enough presence in the marketplace and everybody's locked into your solution, then you drive up the cost of it.
Yeah. So talking of cost, Richard Lai said he's seen reports of light Q&A and simple tasks. That's OpenClaw performing those, $10 to $30 a month. Yeah. Okay. Acceptable. For heavier daily use, this is for coding. The email automation that everyone is a use case everyone seems to like. Please find everybody that's asked me this and send them an automatic response back. That's 24/7 working, obviously, and that comes, he thinks, between $6 and $15 a day, which adds up a couple $100 a month. And then runaway automations. This is where it gets creepy or scary. They can be $200 a day. And so he concludes that some people spend more on their AI assistant than their car payments. It's an American way of framing things, but it's sort of interesting.
Well, hopefully the AI agents won't spend most of their time sitting on public property doing absolutely nothing, which is, let's face it, what cars mostly do.
They do. Right. Back to Jason's top 3 issues. And I think these are really crystallize what the problem is here.
Orchestration. I'll bet orchestration comes into this.
Multi-agent orchestration is messy. So he says, and I think this is incredibly honest of him, but it's a picture into the future for the rest of us. He spends most of his time orchestrating and managing agents.
Oh, agent HR. That's what this is.
AR, I don't know. AIR, air.
So what's the difference between that and running a company full of people? You spend most of your time orchestrating those people.
That's exactly right. Yeah. The second thing, and this also anthropomorphizes beautifully, is you need to do constant training, monitoring, and quality assessment.
Yeah. Do they get sort of bitchy when each agent steps on the other's territory? They're going to start interfering in other agents' work, aren't they?
They're not very clever, right? So they will just keep doing the same thing unless you continually refine it, check for bad outputs, say that doesn't work, try again. I mean, you literally have to guide them. And as he says, this you can't drop an untrained agent in and just expect magic. He says it takes months of iteration, an ongoing human oversight to reach the performance they advertise. I mean, sort of, I get that, but at the same time, if you believe the hype, you wouldn't think this was an issue.
I can't wait for the hierarchical management agents as better agents manage poorer agents, and the better agents have to report to a human being.
It's all coming. And the last thing he mentions of the 3, so in addition to the constant training and the multi-agent orchestration, is customer experience and risk control. So it's preventing agents, of course, in his case, he's using this to literally speak to potential visitors to his event, going off script.
So, sorry, won't he very quickly, his agents, be speaking to the agents of the people going to the event?
Yeah, of course. Yes,
and their agents.
But we're not at that stage yet.
That's a doom loop.
It could be an efficiency loop. So, but he's worried, and very specifically, this rings so true from his business, sending the wrong message to sponsors. That's going to annoy them. Mishandling high-value prospects, without being horribly cynical, prospects have different values, and the top ones you may not want an automaton to, or even a crustaceous automaton to speak to, and that could involve, them making promises that the business just can't keep. Does that sound like a junior employee? It certainly does to me. And he frames it all as a trust and brand risk problem, saying the agents can scale, but 1 or 2 bad interactions with key accounts and all of the gains are gone. I mean, that's a stressful situation, right? So, OpenClaw, what have we learned here?
Well, this is development at breakneck speed, the like of which has never, ever happened before in human history. This is the ultimate in move fast and break things. And, one wonders what is going to be broken in this. Will it go far as basically destroying human relationships and trust and humans being unable to talk to each other and debate because all that has basically been taken over by agents? And there's the perennial question here is, so what is Jason's 10 unemployed salespeople going to do with themselves?
Yeah, they're going to need to learn to program the next instances.
Yeah, well, that's the very positive view. Or we could have a lot of very unemployed, very disaffected people, and then we won't have much of a society for these new technological solutions to operate within.
Gosh, that got dark. Well, let's be a little bit more positive here. This is the part of a category cycle where fortunes are lost, but also fortunes are made. It's very high risk, and there's clearly some awful mistakes being made right now, and also some great breakthroughs, right?
Yeah. It's probably not revenge of the nerds. It's probably a revenge on the nerds.
In some cases, you're right.
You often think, and I think we're going to touch on this later in this episode, it's the winners may actually be a hybrid of pragmatists and techies and people and technology, as it's always been. Because I think these new developments are ultimately just more new tools, and that's how we human beings apparently differentiate ourselves from other mammals, by being great tool users. I mean, sorry, I've got a friendly local neighbourhood raven who would probably argue that actually they're pretty good with sticks.
If OpenClaw is your tool, one way to look at this is great news, right? And it's great news because it's powering on AI, maybe just maybe. But I don't think most folks who want to keep up have got a choice. They need to get on board.
No, this is happening. It will surface in daily use in some form. This is a classic example. You can't recork the tech genie. It's here. It's been discovered. It exists. It will have its uses. The issue, as ever, is diffusion. And how, when, and why will this enter essentially the engines of production in our economy?
Indeed. So get your mini Mac, get out there, because fortune favors the brave.
Yeah, give it a go.
Well, guys, in this increasingly volatile world, many of us are looking for digital sovereignty. And now, more than ever, our national health providers, those in the law and order community, governments and public sector organizations want more control over their communications.
They want a digitally sovereign solution which can never be interrupted based on external demands, no matter how powerful they are, and a service which means they are not reliant on a single vendor.
Opting for open standard software means a competitive vendor ecosystem and solutions which are designed to interoperate with other organizations' infrastructure.
This is where Matrix, the secure communications open standard, plays a vital role.
Most European governments already use Matrix-based solutions for communications, and Element is the leading provider of Matrix-based secure communication solutions. It's already working with the European Commission, NATO, the United Nations, and governments in France, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and many others.
Element provides sovereign, interoperable, and end-to-end communications. If you're responsible for a nation's trusted and resilient communications, take a look at the Matrix Open Standard and Element at element.io.
We've used Element ourselves and find it fast, secure, and so easy to adopt. If you want digital sovereignty, you have to check out Element. See our show notes for more information and get on board with the new secure world of communications today.
We've been talking in recent weeks about how Europe is often misunderstood in terms of the contribution it's made to the global technology environment. Certain commentators are reverting to the really, really, really tired, US innovates and Europe regulates memes, stupid comments about, the fact that in Europe you can actually have your plastic top attached to your plastic bottle for recycling. Well, that's a pretty damn good thing, I think. But the reality is, we've talked about where Europe succeeds in tech. But what we haven't talked about so far is some actual category leaders that are emerging from Europe, and there's a load of them.
Yeah, and I think we probably have been guilty of being a little bit dismissive about Europe's role in the future of AI. And I think that's possibly because we were looking at in the wrong places, at the bottom of the stack, LLMs, at the fundamental AI wave, which is obviously US driven, a lot of money being spent there. And it looked for a long time as though that huge wave of cash, of investment, was a defensive moat for the USA. I think that notion is being challenged now. And there seems to be a bit of a stuttering of faith in the US itself that its big tech is going to take all of the pie.
Yeah, well, of course, our friends across La Manche are being very bolshy about it and saying, well, even the basic enabling technologies of the office or their massive public sector can be replaced by domestic products and supported by domestic companies. Anyway, as we've said before, Europe does well when it specializes building a defensive moat out of deep knowledge of the context of the application. and to build an application that you run an economy on, not one that you just scroll through.
Well, scrolling through might be becoming more difficult because of European legislation, ironically. Without doubt, right, the US infrastructure play and the energy investments, the data center investments, these things look strong. There's massive amounts of money circulating, almost literally circulating, between those who are breaking actual ground, those who are renting data centers and renting racks, and those designing and installing the AI chips who, yet again, with the NVIDIA numbers, are making plenty of money.
Yeah, I mean, if the history serves us well in this, there's plenty of pie left to go for. I mean, just, check out companies like 11 Labs, based out of the UK, but very global, specializing in AI voice generation, which is, a classic level where AI comes towards a useful application. And that raised, I think, about $1 billion recently at a $4 billion valuation, and Sequoia, who you have to take Sequoia seriously in anything they do. They're one of the grand people of venture capital. So they're putting their faith in this particular application. And there's a lot more out there.
Yeah, I think it's a feather in our cap, $1 billion out of $4 billion from, as you say, one of the absolute number one, number two in VCs. Then we've got Lovable, like them or don't love them, with our friend Harry, etc.
Vibe coding for hotshots, I think we can describe that as.
Yeah, there may be trouble ahead, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. And this is sort of more foundational level, as is Mistral AI, and they're leading a charge for foundational models. Whether they can scale to be as big as the Americans,
maybe they don't need to.
Who knows? And does it actually matter? Because Europe wins elsewhere. I mean, another example of that would be like DeepL. They're doing something that everybody needs, which is solving the problem of language translation in a very connected world, and certainly for Europe, because we speak a lot of languages.
Exactly. Yeah. There's Aleph Alpha. We talked about those guys before in Germany. Maybe gone a little bit off the boil, but they're looking at specializing in sovereign, secure, and explainable AI for enterprises and governments.
Of course, let's not forget DeepMind, fly that Union Jack. And, while Aleph Alpha are looking at enterprise and government, DeepMind are looking at scientific discovery.
Yeah, also in biology, out of the Netherlands is Cradle, applying AI to biology.
Even the gnomes are at it. So Ethon AI in Switzerland. And guess what? They're focused on industrial AI for manufacturing quality. And if you want quality manufacturing, Switzerland's always been a good place to go and get it.
Absolutely. And then if you want education, Sana Labs out of Sweden that is specializing in AI for education and enterprise search.
Yeah, and if you want to get a little bit more consumer, how about Photoroom in France? And they are pretty much the leader in AI-powered photo editing.
This is all moving at pace, right? So last year's 2025 Sifted AI 100 showed at the time that the average European funding was around about $100 million. So nowhere near the level of the US, and certainly nowhere near the 11 Labs funding that we just talked about.
Yeah, that's an outlier at the moment.
But I guess it raises the question of how much do you need to raise, right? The rise in solopreneurs, literally folks, vibe coding on their own, setting up businesses and trying things out, and the explosion of vibe coding that drove that means that you can create MVPs or minimal viable products very quickly, roll them out, try them. So it could be that the very reason that you needed the funding at the start, which was to buy some kit, to hire some coders, etc., is not there anymore. And so that would mean that big raises are not the defensive moat that many thought they were previously.
It's sort of interesting that I've noticed in my daily conversations in mergers and acquisitions in recent months, a phenomenon arising where we are seeing European companies developing very compelling product propositions and a client base on relatively little funding. And the funding they actually need is to break out of the European market into the US and Far Eastern markets. So the money is going less into the early development of the technology, because that has been starved of funds in the past. And they have had to develop their companies in a very lean way. But if you're going to try and conquer the North American market, you need serious funding. You can't do it unless you're funded. So you have a choice. You either get the funded and go to the States, or you sell out. And we've talked before about that in the past being a phenomenon of European tech development, selling out essentially too early.
Yeah, and certainly we've helped people like Hyper-Exponential build their case for A16Z when they got the funding to do exactly that. We've also seen, how these things can twist and change a little bit, and AI is relatively new. But people forget that back in the dot-com area, there were some great businesses that were built not simply on tech. They were at the nexus of IT and business consulting. You think of Accenture, multi-billion-dollar, very successful business, and the big Indian players who built off the back of the technology. They weren't necessarily the technologists themselves. And certainly a friend of the pod, Hussain Kasai, thinks so. He recently dropped out a LinkedIn post. I'll just read a little bit of this now. So he's talking about the 95% of pilot AI deployments fail. That's an MIT figure that everybody is looking at. But this is the point I think is interesting. Most teams, he says, are burning cash on the wrong bottleneck. Software is becoming a commodity. There's no shortage of agent builders and LLM tools promising 100% automation, yet projects still stall because companies ignore the real constraint. The people who know the business and the work of wiring that knowledge into the systems that actually run. I think he's onto something here.
Yeah, I think he says this, and this should not come as a surprise to anybody who's done a project to develop anything, is that things fail at the last mile. You've got 99% done, and the last percentage takes forever, or it completely screws up. And in the case of AI, it's when it really, really hits the real world. So, translating messy business logic into workflows, the permissions, the evals, and the operating rhythms. You can't buy your way through this with, forward deployed engineers. The mid-market just can't. It leaves a huge gap between buying a tool and seeing ROI.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that history often rhymes, but it never just repeats. And I think there's some lessons learned from for European category designers to not fold just because the big tech and the large LLMs happen to be massively funded and based somewhere else. The long-term winners are yet to appear, right? And there's some early signs, of course, that there's going to be displacement of skills like, programming, basic enterprise sales, that's just order taking, and low-level marketing roles. Certainly, why would anyone employ someone to do SEO? It's not a job for a human. And I think AI is not playing out as many assumed. Certainly many who wrote big checks have assumed, and some of them are looking a bit nervous now as to whether they're going to get paid back. But it's all still so early.
There's a bit of, putting moats around data going on at the moment, but trying to stay close to human decision makers. Studying the signals from the market. Do you really think this is time to passively stand back and watch?
No, definitely not. Now's the time for us all to start vibe coding, to test our hypotheses, and to look for new opportunities and get cooking.
Yeah, let's get out there, people. Think there are too many lookalike tech companies chasing the same markets? We do. We think it's because so few tech startups are able to build and lead their own categories. What matters most is to be different. Stop following and start building your own unassailable leadership position today. Working with the category design gurus at Categorical brings decades of differentiation expertise to your team. Book a consultation from our website today, and we will send you our one-pager detailing how to start designing your own highly differentiated category. So we really couldn't put an episode out at this time in history without some reference again to the Saaspocalypse, and what is the Saaspocalypse? Well, it's about AI disruption. It could be the AI contagion. Is this filling you with excitement or trepidation? If you've been building a firm in SaaS and you're not in your first flush of youth, do you think it's time to bail out, or are you going full throttle to reinvent your company to take it to the next wave of value? Certainly, there's a lot of debate and a lot of confusion. It matters because for years, SaaS companies built huge organizations, hiring for fun, and all while their revenues just grew inexorably. Now things are changing, and with recent falls in the valuation of what we have to call these days old guard companies, i.e. non-AI native companies, are we at the end of an era of SaaS dominance? Now, you know it might be becoming important when the revered Financial Times writes a very learned article headed by the title, Salesforce Chief Dismisses Saaspocalypse Fears of AI Overtaking Business Software. And that Salesforce Chief, as we know, is one of our favorite human beings in the world of category and tech, the amazing Mark Benioff.
Yeah, but do they have a point? So Benioff's coming out swinging here, saying that there is no Saaspocalypse, and he's dismissed it all as talking about just not being relevant, despite the fact that his sales, which are still 40 plus billion, 46.2 I think last time, and his point is, don't write me off too soon. But is he protesting too much? Because his life's work, Salesforce, is in trouble. I mean, he was the original OG category disruptor. He showed Oracle and everyone else who was around at the time exactly how to do it. He bossed it. He bossed the move from client server to cloud. And now we're moving to AI, and maybe he's got a target on his back.
Well, all great empires eventually decline or have to reinvent themselves, as we are seeing in other areas of society and the economy at the moment. There is that law of big numbers. It's so much harder to grow fast when you're big already. But, he's certainly coming out fighting and very, very bolshy. This is when there's a problem.
Well, here's the Salesforce tweet. This is literally what it says, and it's ballsy, right? Salesforce says, they said enterprise software had peaked. We have just posted our biggest year ever. Funny how that works. Ouch. Wow. Yeah, and then they've got a bunch of numbers. 41.5 billion is the actual revenue number. That's 10% year on year. 20% GAAP operating margin. Not bad at that size. 1.5 billion operating cash flow. I can think of a lot of PE companies who would die for that. 29,000 agent force deals. Now, that's a product that's got agent in it. I'm not sure it's properly agentic, but the point is they're coming out swinging here, right?
Yeah. I seem to remember certain hierarchical databases when a relational came in, putting little relational front ends on. So just doing a little bit of reporting and somehow hoping people would think they were as good as the fully relational product. And they were better to start with, but then the relational took over. But I think the key issue here is whether you view AI as a massive disruptive wave sweeping all before it and rendering today's approach to building and using systems instantly obsolete, or one that Benioff is currently arguing. Now, we know why he's arguing it because, as the Irish said, how do you get to Y? Well, I wouldn't start at X, but he is at X. But he thinks, his basic argument is that AI has the potential to drive the performance and utility of existing systems to new heights, a sort of SaaS AI hybrid. Now, is he playing for time or simply reflecting reality, right? So after all, know your history. Any technology has to diffuse into the economy, and every wave of technology leaves its mark on the next. Now, again, simple analogy. The appearance of the jet engine didn't instantly mean piston engines disappeared. They eventually found aircraft niches in like smaller aircraft, and propellers and jets combined to create turboprops, which are highly fuel efficient at low speeds and altitudes compared to pure jets, which makes them ideal to power regional commuter aircraft and cargo planes and stuff like that. Meanwhile, pure jets dominated the military fighter and medium to long-haul domestic categories, right? But the real issue is what is actually happening in the tech stacks. It's more what the market now thinks of those companies are worth, given the, frankly, I believe, still imaginary impact of AI.
Hence the defensiveness, right?
It's interesting that our good friend Phil Robinson, founder of Boardwave and an ex-SaaS CEO, he has an interesting take on it. He wrote a recent post on LinkedIn. It's worth checking out, entitled "Cloudburst," which we rather liked, And he said, until recently, there's been a significant speculation in why we have an AI bubble in terms of valuations that might burst at any moment. Well, we all know that may still be true. But over the last few weeks, as we're highlighting here, you've heard a lot about and this is my favorite, Saaspocalypse. So Phil's, highlighting the Saaspocalypse of public cloud software valuations. So, why? Well, investors are nervous, clearly, about headwinds generated by AI for traditional SaaS businesses, as though there's somehow one day where SaaS is going to exist and the next day when it's not, which is clearly nonsense.
And there's a method to Phil's madness here, isn't there?
Oh, Phil is nothing if not clever. I think it comes down from, studying computing originally at university. So Phil... put his money where his mouth was, at least intellectually, and built two custom stock indices, a SaaS 20 and an AI software 20. And what he was trying to do was test the thesis that the market is not just readjusting, it's structurally repricing traditional subscription software. And it sort of came out as what you might think, but there's some details that are worth thinking about. So he's doing this at an early stage. It's very experimental. So his AI software 20 firms had to be the net beneficiaries of AI, because so far there's very few public AI companies outside of the hyperscalers, whereas a much bigger basket of public SaaS companies are available. But that aside, the answer to Phil's structural repricing question over the last 12 months is sort of shocking, if not a bit brutal. So if you look at his list, only 2 of the 20 SaaS stocks are in positive territory. The medium SaaS stock in Phil's model is down over 30%.
Well, let's just take that. Let's take that on board a sec. The median, middle, average SaaS stock down a third.
So other people doing worse than that, and some doing better, right? But the median down a third, that's significant. So it's significant because these are well-known names which take up a lot of the index. This is SAP, Salesforce, Adobe, ServiceNow, CrowdStrike. These are the companies that are the backbone of enterprise software, right? So meanwhile, Phil's AI index, and this may come as a surprise. Well, this bit shouldn't if you know anything about the industry, but the impact might. The AI index is currently being carried by 3 stocks, and that's Symbiotic, up about 125%, Alphabet, up 75%, Palantir, up a half. It stripped those out, and this is the interesting thing, the medium AI stock is down 12%, right?
Wow.
Down.
So the winners and losers are being picked, right?
The big question here is this a correction or a structural repricing? Whatever, this really isn't AI is winning. It's something else. Now, we think, could it be that the market is losing faith in per seat subscription economics? Because that has been the basis of this for a dog's age. And if AI can generate a marketing campaign, draft a contract, or triage a support ticket, what's the moat for the SaaS tool that used to own that particular workflow? I mean, like Phil, I don't think this means SaaS is dead, but I think the era, and I'm seeing this every day in M&A, the era of 15 to 20x revenues, revenue multiples for, let's say, 25% per annum growth in enterprise software is over, and it's over forever.
Yeah, I want to add to that. The per seat pricing one is really interesting. A couple of quick anecdotes, if I may. One is the direct experience of with Salesforce, actually, who we started this piece talking about, related to me by the chief operating officer of a very large firm, and let's just say an area related to the hospitality sector. That'll do it. Now, he tried to renegotiate with Salesforce for a temporary license suspension during COVID. And this is a time when he had to lay off over 40% of his team, a lot of whom were personal friends. Guess what Salesforce said? We got a contract and we're sticking to it. Yes.
We've got a contract. We've got shareholders. We need to keep our numbers up.
They just point blank refused. Zero customer service. So as a consequence, for the last couple of years, he's just blanked them. But he's never forgotten. And I know for a fact he's exploring options. If he finds one of those, woe betide, your per pricing seat.
Do you think those agents we were talking about earlier would do that?
Yeah,
I'm a slighted agent.
I think they might be okay retiring for a couple of days as well, as opposed to just saying, give me the money. But anyway, enough of the iniquitous practices of certain software companies. I also had supper. Actually, a Soho cuzzer. Shouldn't dress that up too much.
For people who are not from the north or indeed from the UK, a cuzzer is a curry.
Spiced Indian style repast, yes. This is with the CFO of a 20 plus year British tech firm, valued north of 100 million and revenues, significant revenues too. He was talking about what he saw as the still existent residual belly fat of many vendors and partners in the SaaS space. And he was referring to maybe some of the companies we've talked to earlier, about how quite clear it was that his path forward for his business to be successful was deeper and deeper customer engagement. We're not conceding on seats, not this is your price like at Olympit. His customers don't want to be on the bleeding edge of software. They just want software that works at a reasonable price and a low risk. And yes, that might not be the racy valuations of before. His company, which is PE backed, is certainly going nowhere. It's got dominant, it leads the category. It has also decades of data, which any AI vendor would love to get their hands on, not for sale. And the point is, as you said just now, there will be some unexpected winners among all of the AI doomsterism. Some of those SaaS companies, which we talked about at the top of this, who grow off the back of, let's give you the next version. You need to upgrade. Oh, you don't have the right package. Let's take you to the next package. The massive, I'll do you a favor, or the all-you-can-eat deals that just sticks you with like shelfware that you end up paying for and don't really take control of. And the almost payola-like relationship that some of those SaaS companies have particularly with line of business buyers who maybe are a bit more naive about what else is out there. Those guys, Saaspocalypse, Saastica, whatever you want to call it, those guys are in trouble. And some of us would say they should be.
Yeah, so this might teach the SaaS community, for want of a better word, an overdue lesson. But I wouldn't bet that the generation of AI native companies are going to behave any better, although they should.
Yeah, so I think the way forward here is if they can learn those lessons and maybe not be as transactional as the SaaS companies ended up.
Yeah, it's not going to be about seats anymore, is it?
Definitely not. It's about value. And that means really understanding, accepting, and embracing what it is that AI can bring, because that's going to be the new determinant of value.
Thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about category design, head to becategorical.com. If you need help designing and dominating your category, then get in touch. Contact details are in the show notes.